Details of Life. I'm your host, Marcus Wilson, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming and spending some time with me today. I sincerely appreciate it. You could have been a lot of other places, but you chose to come here, and I promise you, I will not disappoint. You are going to love this one. Today, I have Pacific head coach Damon Stoudamire. Many of you recognize that name. If you watched basketball at all in the 90s and 2000s, you recognize him. I mean, he was first-team All-American, Pac-10 Player of the Year at Arizona, 7th pick of the NBA draft, NBA Rookie of the Year, had a great career, started off in Toronto, then moved over to Portland, had some interesting times there. I mean, was a baller, but played with a really interesting group of guys there. That's when Rasheed Wallace was getting all those texts, and, you know, they were actually called the Portland Trailblazers. We talked about that. How did that affect him as a person, receiving all that scrutiny? How does that affect how he disciplines his players now? You know, it was really cool conversations. We took a trip down memory lane of what it was like playing back in the Conference of Champions when Arizona and UCLA was top 5, top 10 every year. And then we also got into some other stuff. Really cool conversation. He played against Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. And we got a chance to talk about who he thought was the GOAT. So, you know, that was some more cool stuff. A lot of great conversation here. Of course, we talked about his current team at Pacific. You know, he was just recently named this past year West Coast Conference Coach of the Year, right? That same West Coast Conference with Gonzaga and Mark Few. Yeah, Damon Stoudamire was Coach of the Year this year. You may not have known that. He's getting it done on and off the court. So a lot of cool stuff. Enough of me talking. I can't wait for you guys to listen to this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and join in with Pacific head coach Damon Stoudamire.
Like I just prefaced, today we have former NBA hooper and current Pacific University head coach Damon Stoudamire. How you doing, Coach?
Man, I'm doing well today. Marcus, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm awesome, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on the Details of Life. And we're going to go into your career and as a player and as a coach, but also want to start off as your playing days at Arizona. You know, you were a consensus All-American, made it to the Final Four. And so obviously those are probably some of your highlights, but what are some of your best memories as a player at Arizona?
You know, I was fortunate. You know, because when you go to college, you don't really know, you know, what it's going to be like. And man, I was fortunate. I played for a Hall of Fame coach. One of the highlights for me, man, is that I got a chance to play with so many pros. Like, people don't really understand that makes you a good player. I played with, you know, Joseph Blair, Ben Davis, you know, Mike Dickerson, Miles Simon. Like, man, the list goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And, you know, I just didn't envision that when I went. I mean, I knew I would be challenged, but I didn't envision that. And for me, you know, each and every day to have to come and compete every day in practice, like, think about that compared to today. There's probably a handful of colleges where you got to come and compete every day, where the coach don't got to motivate you, where the coach doesn't have to motivate you. Back then, there wasn't no motivation. You had to come play because you'd lose your position, man. like it wasn't no. And I would say this, probably the other biggest highlight was who I was competing against at that time in that conference. You know, you know, us and UCLA were like the barometers at that time. And I remember my freshman year, we played UCLA the first time at McHale. And there were like 16 pros in that game. There were 16. Now, you just think about what I said, like 16 pros on our team. It was myself. It was Khalid Reeves, Chris Mills, Sean Rooks, Ed Stokes, Matt Arthur played in the NBA. Ray Owes played in the NBA. I'm probably even missing somebody else off our team. UCLA, Don McClain, Tracy Murray, Eddie O'Bannon, George Zedek, Tyus Edney, Gerald Mackins, and I'm probably missing some off of their team. The coaches in that game, you know, you think about the coaches: Lute Olson, Jim Herrick, Lorenzo Romar was an assistant. I think Mark Godfrey was like grad assistant or something at UCLA. Like, you just start to think of all the names and all the, like, you know, even, you know, I got a chance to play. You played against Cal, Jason Kidd, Lamont Murray, Michael Stewart, Yogi Stewart. Like, you did Stanford, Brevin Knight. Like, this, it's not happening like that anymore, man. Where you know, you got challenged every USC, Harold Miner, Dwayne Cooper. Like, you know, these were guys that were, you know, these were pros, man. Like, every team, it seemed like at that time, had at least one pro. Oregon State, Brett Berry. They had Brett Berry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody even, other than his brothers at that time, even thought about Brent. But I'm saying, like, it was the Pac-10 at that time, not the Pac-12, but the Pac-10. God, it was major. You know, there were always going to be 3 teams in the top 10 every year. Every year when I was at Arizona, except maybe my last 2, us UCLA always started off in the top 10, top 5, top 10. But USC had that run when Harold was there, where, you know, they were right there too. So, I mean, just, it was a league of champions, as my man Bill Walton calls it. But it was, you know, it was, man, just getting a chance to go to Arizona and compete, like, you know. And I don't know how long I got. I'm just talking. But I think about the games, right? We went and played. I won't talk about the good games we played, what were considered the great game, because we played at Syracuse. No, we did all that. Who goes and plays Rhode Island at Rhode Island? Do you think that a top 10 program right now from the West Coast would go across the country to play at Rhode Island right now? It won't happen in college basketball today. We went and played against Rhode Island, Tyson Wheeler, who was a freshman, and a guy by the name of Catino Mobley. Man, I had no clue who these guys was. And we had to go put our hard hat on. You don't do that anymore in college basketball. But that was the beauty of college basketball back then. That you know, it wasn't about none of the dynamics. It was just about, you know, you're scheduling, you're playing the best teams come back to play you, and that's just what it was. So,
Man, no, you named, man, I forgot all those players, man. And you're right, Pac-10 was full of pros, but also says a little bit about yourself, man, because you was consensus All-American, putting in work. But, man, I remember those days. And so just a little kind of off topic, but I remember I was just telling one of my buddies that you was coming on the podcast, and I was like, man, what would be something you would want to ask him? And he was like, man, how did he get his name Mighty Mouse? He was like, I used to love Mighty Mouse. So how did that nickname come about back then?
I have no clue. I messed around and I started to get a tattoo fetish. I got my first tattoo, right? So I got my first, actually Khalid got his first tattoo his senior year. So I seen it, I was like, man, I'm about to go get a tattoo. So I went and got my name. I didn't know what to do. And my little shoulder wasn't that big. My name was it looked lopsided and all that. And I said, you know what? I got to try to get me another one. So what happened is I think it was the summer between my senior year and my freshman year. Excuse me, my first year in the NBA, I went and got that tattoo. I get to Toronto, and it just kind of took off. So everybody just kind of ran with it. Mighty Mouse, Mighty Mouse. They even made a little commercial. Nike made a little spot. We had a little spot and everything. But yeah, that's kind of how that came about.
That's crazy. I do remember that. I had forgot that was your nickname until he just mentioned that. But no, that's cool to know how that started up. But you mentioned Toronto. We don't have a whole lot of time to cover everything, because you had a lot of success throughout your career. But you did go to Toronto, balled out, rookie of the year, averaged about 20 and 10. And then after that, got traded to Portland. And anybody around my age, I remember that time. And they were calling Portland the Portland Trailblazers because of some off the court type of stuff, But what I wanted to ask you about that time was, considering you were still a young man at that time, you've had time to mature and everything, but at that time, all that media scrutiny, a lot of it was negative. I remember it felt like Rasheed Wallace was just a bad guy back then, which, and so how did all that negative attention and all that, how did that affect you now as a coach in terms of how you discipline your players? Or do you show them more grace, or did any of that impact how you lead or discipline your players now?
It does. I'm not gonna lie, it does. And I had to find a balance. When I became head coach, it was harder because I was the final decision maker. As an assistant coach, I seen the issue for what it was. But when I was in Portland, it was, and situations were brought. You look back on it now. We, some of us brought the situations on ourselves. Now let's be honest, but it makes you guarded, man. It makes you guarded. So what happened is that I was already an only child, and it made me so, the stuff I went through in Portland made me so guarded for a long time. And truth be told, I was probably a little scarred, and it took me a long time to get over that stuff, man. Because at times it wasn't about basketball, you know what I'm saying? And so for me, back then, and I was from Portland too, so it was just like a double-edged sword, man, and you couldn't get away from it, But as I became, assistant coach and head coach, I tell guys all the time, you just gotta be careful with your choices, man. You do. You have to be careful with your choices. And we didn't even come up in the social media era. So I think about my playing career, and I think had I came up in the social media era, man, I would have been a phenomenon in a lot of different ways, some for the good and some for the bad. It is what it is, and that's what I tell these guys, man. When you do something, boom, it's in fine print. I try to tell these guys, I try to give them every example, Marcus, that I can of what happened to me, the good and the bad, so they see the whole gamut and the spectrum. And I think it helps me as a coach because I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of times where, I love second chance kids. I'm not gonna lie, I love second chance kids. I love kids rough around the edges. I love it. I do, because I see a little bit of them in me. And the things that I've been through, I feel like they can relate to those things. And I try to be honest. I try to be transparent. And yes, it's affected me. And some of the things that I implement are a direct reflection of what happened to me, and I try to guard them from that. And I know that I can't, guard them 100%, but I do try to guard them from the things that happened to me.
I assume that would be your answer because people don't realize. I mean, you were in your younger 20s, but still, when you're in your younger 20s, all that fame, all the attention, money, and then the negative that comes with that, I'm sure it does make you guarded. And then even as a coach, I'm sure it probably helps you in like recruiting and relationships because you can tell your players, hey, nothing that you going through that I haven't been through, right? And so, man, yeah. I'm sure your players can respect that. But throughout your career, you played against a lot of great players. Again, we can't name them all, but I would probably say, three of the ones that are most worldwide famous, Kobe, LeBron, MJ. I'm not one to ask who was better because I've just learned to appreciate greatness. But what were some of the things that you saw in them on the court, off the court, training habits, anything that were similar that you think, that you could say, man, some of the greats, all of them did this?
I mean, it's funny because it's finally came out through The Last Dance, the relationship that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant had. But, man, anybody in the league at that time knew that Kobe emulated Mike. Like, it was obvious, man. The mannerisms, everything, the approach, everything he did was just like Mike. You know what I mean? It was just like Mike. Like, so I came in the league. So I was in the league of the Bulls' second three-peat. And, Mike was Mike, man. They were really good. He had an aura about him, and I think that everybody's saying like he was a killer, like he didn't care. this is the one thing I look at, and I'll just say this, because you can only say prime Mike, prime Kobe, even to a certain extent prime LeBron. And when I say prime LeBron, he's in his 17th year. So let's say 13. Well, let's call it the first 10 years. Let's say after LeBron's second. Let's say everybody's 2 through 10. Call it 2 through 10. In today's basketball, 2 through 10, can you imagine them? Because everybody just switches the ball screen now. So can you imagine them in years 2 through 10, what they would be doing to defenses now? With guys just switching on them? Nobody talks about that. You can throw LeBron up in there. Like, to me, we forget to throw LeBron in those conversations because he in year 17. He didn't come up in this era. He was in what? I played against LeBron for, I think, 4 years, 4 or 5 years. So that's 2003, I think was his rookie year, you know. And, man, like 2003, LeBron to 2000, let's say the second title or even the first title in Miami. Come on, man. Like, you know, but Kobe, you know, I mean, I think that for me, Mike is the best player ever. I think he is. I think that Kobe and LeBron are right there. But I look at basketball so different. I hate debating. I hate debating errors. I do. I hate it. But I do believe this. Sometimes when we talk about LeBron and they talk about LeBron and they talk about Mike, and I could be totally wrong. When I see LeBron, I see more Magic than I see Mike. I see Magic Johnson. And then we don't talk about Magic as much as Mike. And we forget that Magic was like, he top 10. He top 10 in the history. That doesn't make LeBron not in the discussion as the best player ever, but he's not Michael Jordan. To me, he's more Magic. I think LeBron enjoys passing the ball and making his teammates better just as much as he enjoys scoring the ball. Like, that's the gift. That's his gift.
Yep.
That's the gift that he has. You know, he scores because he just can, you know? Yep. So I think that from that standpoint, you know, we haven't seen anybody since Magic Johnson that size that does the things with the basketball that LeBron does. He's just a more athletic Magic Johnson.
Yep. Yeah, man, I was watching Rashad Phillips talking to Kendrick Perkins the other day. He gave a real good example about this because ever since Kobe passed, man, I don't debate on that stuff no more. I just want to respect their greatness. But Rashad Phillips said, you know, he looks at it like this. You know, you got great white sharks, you got hammerheads, you got tiger sharks, and yeah, Jordan and Kobe might be great whites. They're a little bit more like got that kill in them.
Right.
But LeBron might be a tiger shark. I bet you won't get in the water with none of them sharks, though, right? They all still on a certain level of kill that you got to respect. Yeah, man. So, no, it's good to hear your perspective on all that, man. I just appreciate the greatness on that. But, man, I appreciate you because a lot of guys kind of shy away from that, but I appreciate your honesty on that. I want to get into some of your coaching. You know, you got into coaching in 2008, and you started at Rice as the director of player development. And so anybody that doesn't know the coaching scale at universities, you know, director of player development and video coordinator are usually behind the dobo, and then you got 3 assistants, then you got the head coach. You know, you wasn't really allowed to recruit. And somebody of your playing stature and experience, I would have thought could have just jumped in as an assistant. So was it difficult for you to get your break in the coaching? And even so with that, why did you start off at Rice? Who gave you your break to get in?
You know what? I didn't even start out trying to coach, Marcus. Really and truly, I lived in Houston, so I got a house in Houston. So what I was doing, I used to work out at Rice. I had worked out at Rice. I worked out at Rice for probably like 4 or 5 summers. Willis Wilson was the coach then. And then Willis got let go, and they brought in Ben Braun. And he let us come in the gym and work out. So I would work out there at Rice. So I was just I didn't know whether I was going to play again or not, but I was just trying to stay ready just in case. The athletic director at that time, Chris Del Conte, he was from Arizona, so he was there when I was an undergrad, so I knew him. And so he kind of told me, man, go down there and holler at Ben. You know, you might as well try to coach. And I was like, man, I'm not a coach. So truth be told, he's the one that told me to go down there and holler at Ben Bryant because I didn't know Ben like that, you know. And so I went down there, I talked to Ben. And so on the initial, it was just basically getting my feet wet. I didn't even have no title. I just went to practice. So I didn't even really know nothing about the college structure. And so he kind of told me about the college structure. And at that time, you know, he was telling me, I think it was a restricted earnings coach or something at that time. That's what they had. Wasn't that the third assistant back in 2008? That might have been a restricted earnings coach. Yep. And I said, look, all I'm trying to do is learn. I don't really know about college. This isn't something that I tried to do. Right. I'm just trying to figure all of it out. And so I just would watch from the sideline. I would talk to the kids from the sideline, X, Y, and Z. So the kids started, you know, the kids kind of took to me. So, you know, once the kids took to me, I think Ben allowed me to grow at my own pace. I said, man, let me come shadow you like for a couple of days and just kind of see what this whole gamut is of being a head coach in college. I said, I'm interested. Come up here and hang out with some of the assistants and all that stuff. You know, so I ain't had no offers or nothing. So literally I was working out in the morning, doing my own thing, and then I would just go up there afterwards, right? So that's when I started seeing kind of the full gamut of what it was. And then, so Ben, I think he enjoyed having me around. And truth be told, man, I like being around not only the staff, but I like being around those kids. You know, it was fun. It made me look forward to something every day because when you retire, it's boring, man. Like, you know, and I was in a flux. I was didn't know whether I was in or out, but it was boring, you know, I'll be honest with you. And I had something to finally look forward to. So then what happened, Ben was like, man, why? Just come on ahead and come to some games, man. So I was going, it was non-conference, and, you know, I went and sat on the bench for a couple games, and I remember one game we played. It was funny. This is funny. If I knew the other coach on the other team, and now understand, I didn't necessarily know him personally, but they would look at me like, Damon, I didn't know you were a coach, right? So we played Harvard. We beat Harvard, too. And that's when Harvard had Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin was at Harvard. We beat Harvard. Amaker was the coach. I think that might have been maybe his first or second year because I had known him. You know, I remember he was at Seton Hall and at Michigan. I don't know which one he was at first. Anyway, after the game, he's like, oh, man, Kenny Blakely was one of his assistants. Man, we didn't know you was in. I said, yeah, I'm just helping out with the kids. And so that's how I really started, right? Then we played Texas A&M. Texas A&M had DeAndre Jordan. They had Coach Byron. And obviously Turgeon was the head coach. And so I knew Coach Byron and Turgeon. I knew Byron from Houston, Pro-Ams. Knew DeAndre from Houston because he worked out at the gym with us. And then I knew Turgeon from when Turgeon was an assistant with Jerry Green at Oregon. And so it was funny. He was like, man, you coaching? He couldn't believe it. So that's how it started, man. And so then what happened, real quick, I said, Ben, can I go on a road trip? He said, you know, we can't pay because it's not the budget. I said, man, don't worry about that. I pay for my own trip. Pay for my own trip, pay for my own. So we go to UAB, I do that. That's how I kind of got into it, man. That was the full gamut of it. And ironically enough, I was only there for about a month and a half. What happened was I was there for about a month and a half, and then the Memphis Grizzlies fired Mark Ivoroni. Lionel Hollins got the coaching job, and then Lionel called me. My first 2 years of coaching, so at Rice and at Memphis, when I went to the Grizzlies, I didn't get paid. Now, that's not – it's different levels to it, right? I just left the league. I was good with my bread, so I could afford to do certain things, you know what I mean? And I get it. But, yeah, my first 2.5 years, I didn't get paid.
Man, that's crazy, man. It goes to show, man. I mean, you was just there working out, fell into your lap. But you mentioned, like, going to Rice and enjoying being around the guys. And when I coached at St. Louis University, I was there with Calbert Chaney, and he's now in the G League, and he's thought about going back to the NBA. So he's told me some of the differences between coaching pros and college and what he prefers more or less. So, like you mentioned, you've been to the Grizzlies, back to Arizona, Memphis, now Pacific. What's the biggest difference between coaching college age kids and coaching college and then coaching in the NBA?
College is different from the standpoint. I feel like you got to be able to get it, guys, on both levels. But I feel like at college, like if you get the right group of kids, and I think people that watch this, I hope they understand what I'm saying. There really is a difference between high majors and mid majors. It is. It's a difference. There's a difference. And here's the difference. When I was at Arizona and when I was at Memphis, you could really get at them kids, man, because they aspire to be pros. They have seen enough people in their circle become pros to the Stanley Johnsons, T.J. McConnells, Ryan Day Jefferson. Man, the dudes was pros. Like, at Memphis, Will Barton, he told me what he was going to do to get out of there. Man, I'm an average 20 and 10 coach. He averaged 19 and 9, but he was like, I'm 20 and 10, I'm out. But now you get to mid-major, you got to aspire a little different. So I got high majors out. So that the biggest difference to me is like being a head coach at a mid-major and then being a pro coach, because it's different. At mid-major basketball, you got to make kids believe. Number one, you got to give them the utmost confidence. You got to put your arm around them. You got to love on them to get whatever it is out of them that you get, even at the high major. But that's the one thing I tell this to guys all the time. I was talking to an executive from an NBA organization the other day, and he said, "What do we need to do better?" I said, "What y'all don't do in the NBA, you don't put your arms around guys. They give in the NBA, it's about money. If you pay a guy $5 million, $10 million, $15 million, and we all guilty of it in our own way, right? We feel like they're supposed to perform. But then you forget these the same kids that's coming from college. The number one thing you got to do on the collegiate level and the pro level is you got to love on them because they're still kids. They still kids. Devin Booker is considered one of the best two guards in the league, and I don't think he's nothing but 23. Man, he's a kid. He's a kid. But in the pros, you're expected to be more professional. In college, we're expected to give them the professionalism. You have to give them a boundaries. You got to give them rules. It's a 24-hour job. Your job depends on the kids' successes and failures, and the kids don't even know that. That's what the kids don't know. The kids don't know that. The kids have no clue about that. So when you get a phone call on a kid and it's a good call, in your head you're so happy. But when you get a phone call on that kid and it's something that you got to go dig into, it becomes a problem because you know deep down what's at stake. And I don't think the kids know. You're trying to get the kids to understand on the college level what's at stake, I don't think some of them really understand what's at stake. You got to figure this thing out quick, trying to speed up the process. And I think for me, that's the biggest difference. You got a 24-hour job as a head coach where you're the owner, CEO, you're the president, you're the general manager, director of basketball operations, you're the head coach. Now you got your assistants. Now you got to delegate all within that stuff. And, we don't have that luxury. In the NBA, it's all basketball. They got it. Like I said, they have an owner. They have a CEO. Like, stuff that happens there, off the floor, that has nothing to do with the coaching staff. The coaching staff coaches the players that they put in front of them, and that's all you do.
Yeah, man. I've talked to a couple of different guys who have done both, and some guys are just like, some prefer one over the other. Some guys are like, in the pros, it's more business. We've heard Greg Popovich talk about, hey, you don't have to inspire a plumber to come to work and be a plumber. You come and do your job. Whereas in college, like you said, it is your job to inspire these guys and all that. So it depends what you want. And then also, some guys enjoy the recruiting. Some guys don't. You got to go through the draft and, and evaluate. But in college, you're essentially, I wouldn't say begging, but you're trying to coerce parents and kids to come there. Whereas in college, you signing the guy, you're on this team, and this is what it is. So there's some differences, but I guess it's just to each his own what he prefers. And
I agree with you. It's to each his own, but it's definitely difficult. I see. Well, I shouldn't say I see. I hear more college guys say that they don't know about the pros because it's so limited a job in the pros compared to college. And I'm like, man, I agree to disagree with that. It's coaching is coaching, man. If you know how to inspire, man, coaching is coaching. Like, you can't be set your ways in the pros, though. I think that's helped me in college. You got to change on the run. What I see a lot in college sometimes is that guys don't really want to adapt. That's the first thing I learned as a coach in the pros. You got to learn to adapt. It's all about the adjustment. It's not what you come in with. It's the adjustment.
Definitely, man. That's some good knowledge. So, want to fast forward to where you're at now. You're at Pacific. Been there a couple of years, building up the program. This past year, finished 23-10, third in the West Coast Conference. What do you think has been some of the reason for your turnaround from last year to now in terms of getting 23 wins and finishing higher in the conference?
Well, the biggest thing, Marcus, number one, is we're off probation. I didn't really talk about it enough, and I think all my friends and people in the business like, man, tell everybody, you gotta let everybody know. But I just, I'm not a guy for excuses, but we were on probation for 3 years, and that's how I got the job. The first year off probation, we had the success this year. I think it started from the beginning in creating a culture, figuring out things, trial and error, and I'll say this, God, like I said, for me, like, you sit up here, you write all these notes, you do all this stuff, and you talk about what you want to do to become a head coach. And then you go into an interview process and all that, but man, when you become a head coach, like, you got to figure all that out. And if you don't figure something out and kind of frame your own plan and frame a plan, because there's going to be some deviation along the way, then you're going to get fired straight up. Like, it's hard. What I wanted to do when I came here, like, if I showed you my original plan or what I did, man, I scrapped all that. That wasn't working. That wasn't working. It wasn't going to work. You start scrapping stuff, you start doing things on the run, and you start learning. And that's what I did. And we got up to this point this year to where we finally put it all together. The one thing that people don't understand, I think that our conference is starting to get a lot of recognition now. The WCC is a tough conference. The one thing that goes unsaid, you always have St. Mary's, Gonzaga, BYU have been the top 3 teams, in this league perennially since BYU entered. In my first 4 years, what I'm proud of, and see people, like I say, it's almost like, look, I got to do a better job of talking about my own program. The second year here, we only had 7 scholarship players, and we came in 4th place in the conference. We have finished since I've been head coach here at Pacific, we finished in the top 4 of this conference 2 out of 4 years. Man, you know how hard that is. I would want to see what other schools within the 10-year frame, did that. I think that says a lot about, the players and the staff, because I haven't done it alone. But it's been a joy trying to figure things out, and you have different methods to your madness, as you figure out the conference. And the first thing that I figured out in this conference is, and you're never going to win in this league with all freshmen. It's not possible. It's not possible. You got Gonzaga getting top 10 recruiting classes. You got BYU has a lane of themselves. St. Mary's has a lane of themselves. And then everybody else in the league, we got to figure it out. And I just don't think you can win with all freshmen. I think you'll win every 4 years with all freshmen. But you're not going to win with all freshmen. So I've tried to do things uniquely. Last year was the first year that I had 3 freshmen on my team. That's the most freshmen I've had. in one season, and one was a starter. One was a part-time starter, and one got injured. So they were major contributors on my team. But you usually don't find that. I've been able to mix in grad transfers with some JUCOs, and that's kind of been my recipe. I try not to infiltrate it with more than one or the other. Whatever it might be, I'm looking for a skill guy because this year one of the biggest things for me and my team is depth, okay? The biggest thing for anybody in running a program is playing time. Guys want to play. But if they know they got somebody behind them, they tend to do the right thing or not, man, come sit down with us, because he want to play tonight. And that's what we did this year, and it helped us out tremendously also.
Yeah, man, I love the way you build it because, like you said, it's hard to compete with when you got Gonzaga getting top 10 classes. If they're getting 4 or 5-star freshmen and you're not, the way that you're going to have to compete against that is to have older, more physically developed guys. Whether you got them from JUCO, whether they're 3rd or 4th year, juniors, seniors, maybe 5th year kid who redshirted, but you got to be able to combat that with maturity and strength, which you get from grad transfer, what you get from JUCO, what you get from 3rd, 4th, 5th year guys. So you're exactly right, Coach. So a couple other things before we finish up is, speaking of your team, man, what should we be looking out for next year? Do you have any grad transfers coming in? Any guys that set out? Any incoming freshmen? Anybody that might jump off the radar to us and have an impact on your season next year?
Yeah, we have. We incorporated some transfers. We do have some transfers coming in. I signed 5 guys. I had 8 guys coming back. I lost my best player, Jalil Tripp, but I had 8 guys coming back. Actually, 7 guys coming back. But I ended up signing. I signed 1 grad transfer, Jordan Bell from Loyola Marymount. It was within conference, but it was a little different because Coach Dunlap was let go. But Jordan Bell, is coming to us. He's a 4-5, mostly 4 that I want him at. We have Javay Green transferring in from Nebraska, who I think if he's able to get the waiver, I think he'll impact us right away. He averaged 8 points a game at Nebraska last season. He was one of the top JUCO players in the country a couple years ago. We also added Nigel Shadd, transferring in from Kansas State, who I think could really impact our program. He reminds me a lot, but only he's thicker. Obviously at K-State, the way Coach Weber and those guys down there do it, I know that staff, they do a great job. And they always seem to get a bunch of bigs and let the bigs fight it out and figure it out. And so I think Nigel can really help us with his running, with his jumping. He's the type of guy to me that should be right in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year in our conference. One thing that we do well, we've been a pretty good defensive team. Another thing that in my first 4 years, we've had the Defensive Player of the Year in the WCC twice. And I don't see it being any different with a guy like Nigel. He has that capability to be a double-digit rebounder and a great shot block guy for us. Signed a kid from Chipola, Mario Mating. I think he has a chance to be a star. 6'10" wing. Can play some 3. Can play some 4, but really is a 3. Is a wing. I think he runs for layups. He can shoot the 3. I look forward to, being able to coach him the way he moves without the ball. The things that he don't have, he'll get that here, because, the environment, you got to be mentally tough, man. That's the environment. I try to create a hostile environment so guys can understand that they got to be mentally tough. Jaylen Brown, he went to Eastern Arizona. He'll come in, he'll fill a void for us in terms of shooting the ball. He has 3 years. So I'm looking forward to those guys and, the guys that we have, coming back being a little bit better. It's such a different season, man. It's going to be different. And, I tell guys this, everybody have their own theories, but I tell you, I've been through a lockout in the NBA where in '99 we didn't start until I think our first practice was like late December, and I don't know what actually is going to happen, here. But I do know this one thing about it: everybody's on the same playing field because, unless somebody's family has a gym at their house, nobody's shooting ball. Nobody's shooting ball. But I really think that this is a year where depth will be key for teams, and I love my depth once again. I love my depth. I got a guy coming back too. Let me add this: my freshman that set out, Jonathan Salazar, 2 years ago. He was one of the top players in California. Undersized, for physical. We get him back healthy. He can be one of the best rebounders in this league too, and just add to the toughness standpoint of the way I like to play. So I'm excited, but we do got a lot of depth, and I think depth will be key in what's going on right now, depending on how many games we play or don't play, because I don't think anybody knows.
No, you're exactly right. Sounds like you got a lot of good pieces coming back, and looking forward to seeing your style of play. Last thing I always finish with is, anybody that comes on here probably has had some level of success, and obviously as a player, at the college level, pro level, now as a coach, you've had a lot of success. So are there any things that you do, any daily habits or any routines or anything that you do throughout your life or even recently that you do that you feel contributes to your level of success?
What's crazy is I do. I am a routine driven guy. Honestly, I don't know how people that don't have a routine, how they function. I wake up in the morning. I probably get up. I've been getting up a little later, more like 6 now, but usually if this was regular, just normal, I'm up at like 4:45, 4:30, 4:45. I read the Bible. I read Psalms 23. I read Psalms 101. And I read Philippians 10-15 every day. Every single day. It's crazy. Look, I drink a bottle of room temperature water. I've been doing this like for 15, 16 years. I walk around my own house to wake up because I'm up, but I'm not up. So I walk around the house to wake up, and then I work out. And I got to do that every morning. For me, working out is the therapeutic thing. Like, I don't know how people, like, we all got our vices. For me, my vice is working out. If I don't work out, I can't function. I'm irritated. I'm ornery. Like, I'm not the same person. So I work out 7 days a week. I'm not one of them guys, I'm going to take a couple of days off. Nope. I work out every day until my body say chill. That's when I take time off. When my body says chill, that's when I won't work out.
Yeah, I ask a lot of coaches that, and almost everyone says working out is a must. Just, working out, getting that negative energy out, getting a clear mind. But that's also about waking up, staying in your word and everything, man. But I do believe you got to have a routine to be successful. But before I close up, man, I do want to say for the people out there listening, man, I really respect not only your game. We all know, you consistent first team All-American, NBA vet. But one of my former players at SLU, Miles Reynolds, transferred out and played for you a little while, man. And I just remember talking to him and James, his dad, and they were so impressed with your genuineness and what they felt you could teach him as not only as a point guard, but as a man. And so for anybody that's been through things in their life, like we was talking about your time in Portland and everything, like your stuff isn't as extreme, but like you think of guys like Tyson and George Foreman who were labeled something at one point in their career, and now they're seeing completely different. And so for you to go from there to a point now where a guy transfers and they want to be with you as a mentor, I think says a lot about you as your development as a man, man. So a lot of people don't see that. They just see the end product. But man, I really appreciate your consistency to continuously, work on yourself and now giving that knowledge back to our youth, man. So I really appreciate that, Coach.
Thank you, Marcus, man. I appreciate that, man. That's a good family there, though, man. The Reynolds, boy, that's a good family. I still talk to them, man. Them good folks there, man. Good people.
Yeah, they are, man. They're good people. They're good people. Miles loved you, man. So anyway, I appreciate you making the time for coming on, man. Good luck to you this summer. Hopefully you get back on the court soon, get back around your guys, and have a great season next year, Coach.
Okay, Marcus. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right, baby.
Thank you, Coach Stoudamire, for coming on the details of life. Good luck to you next year. That was a great conversation. I'm not going to lie. That was one of the most fun conversations I've had on here. Going down memory lane. He's got so many experiences. It's easy to see why he's having success. You know, a lot of times when NBA coaches come to the college level and coach, historically have not fared very well. But Coach Stoudamire is breaking that mold, as we saw with being Coach of the Year, and it's easy to see why. Easy guy to talk to, a lot of experiences, mentoring our youth. Keep it up, brother. I'm supporting you. Next episode, we have another young good coach out on the West Coast, Dietrich Taylor out at Cal State Fullerton. You know, some of you may not know him from around this area where I'm at in the Midwest, but if you've been in the game for a while, you know who he is. He's been around for a while. Besides his head coaching job, probably most notably was when he was assistant coach at Arizona State, coaching James Harden. So we talked about that, his development, because obviously when James Harden was at Arizona State, I don't know anybody thought he would be who he is now. So we talked about his development, what he saw in them then, as well as he has this cool thing going on called the Think Tank, where he's bringing guys in, coaches, talking about life things, not X's and O's. We're talking about financial advisors, giving them emotional intelligence skills, all the things to build up to make a coach more successful on and off the court, because, you know, he's giving them the details of how to be great, because even he knows greatness is in the details, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are having a blast here. Make sure you tune back in next Wednesday for an awesome episode. Like, subscribe, share, and let's keep getting it done. Peace.